Okay, so Christmas toy or Christmas chore, I'm not really sure which. This is a new turntable. I haven't had a turntable in years, a lot of years. And I never had a very good one. The only time I owned a turntable, I was in university and couldn't afford a good one. So I have a Project Carbon RP3, which is, I guess, classified as an entry level turntable, crazily. It has the ability to be adjusted, although it doesn't have the slick fine tuning features that some of the high end expensive ones have. So setting it up, I'm going to show you what I've done, what you need to do, what I do if you want to do what I did. And that's my dog ringing the bell on the door because she wants out and can't go out because it's dark out. So sorry, where was I? Okay, so here's what you need. First thing you need is a level. So this is a really cheap as you can get. It's a line level. But in addition to being a line level, see the V on the bottom? So it actually rests reasonably well on a curved surface. I'll show you why that's important in a minute. Summit, come on over here. Come here. You're not going out. So first thing you do is you've got to level up your turntable. Right? So, you put that on the platter, you spin it around, and you make sure your bubble is where it should be in all dimensions. Most important dimensions, obviously, is it level, perpendicular to where the needle is going to touch, where the stylus is going to touch, I should say, or is it level perpendicular to that, so that could affect your tracking error. Okay, not your tracking error, but the amount of tracking force you need. Okay, so that's the first thing you're going to need is that, and you're going to need to level that up, which I've already done. Next thing you need is a weight gauge, because you have to set the weight of your stylus. Now you can use the one that came with it. It's a plastic one. I don't know where it is, so I won't be using it. Or you can use something like this. You simply turn it on. It'll zero up in a second here. And then you drop the needle on it. This one currently says 1.74, right? I changed the cartridge, by the way. So if you're comparing your completely stock one to this, I just put a new cartridge on. So I had to align that. I'm assuming your cartridge came aligned, so I'm not going to go into that here. You can Google that and see what other people are doing there. So what you're going to need after you set your weight, and I'm assuming you're going to know how to do that because that's very simple, and you just, you want more weight, slide the weight a little bit forward. You want less weight, push it back a little bit. All right, so that's easy, or it should be. Next thing you do, so we've set the weight on it, and I'm set up to 175. And this is an MP200 cartridge, and so I think the specs were somewhere around 1.5 to 2, could have been 1.6 to 2, but I'm somewhere right in the middle, what I would call the sweet spot. So that's fine. So the next thing you should do is set the anti-skate. We set the weight, so now we're going to set the anti-skate. What I do for this, and this isn't my method, this is somebody else who showed this, but I thought it was fantastic. Now here's the interesting thing. When you buy this turntable, they will tell you to set your weight to whatever, in my case 175. That would imply that I should set my anti-skate to 175. Now, I've already set my anti-skate, so I know what I've got it set to, and I'm going to show you that it is accurately set, and then I'm going to show you what I have it set to. So I put an old CD here on this. It's an old one, scratched up. It's no good. You want to use one that's old and scratched up. And it's for, it's just an old CDR for storing stuff on your notebook when you used to have a CD reader in your notebook. So we're going to come over here. And now I'm about to drop the needle. Ooh, it's skating out. You see that? So that means I have too much anti-skate on. So I'm turning it down a tiny bit. It's going in, so I don't have enough. So I'm just going to play with this back and forth till I get the right amount of anti-skate. Just going in slowly. So we're just going to try and tweak it here. Just get the right amount. Still moving in. So we want a little more. Tiny bit more. That's just about right. Doesn't matter if it tracks in a little bit, but you don't want it flying into the center because that means there. So right now I've got the needle dropped and it does go in, but barely. So I would suggest that that is about the right amount of anti-skate. Now I will show you a couple things before we move on. First off, we're going to shut that motor down. This tone arm is going to come over. This is going to come on. This is coming off. Not that it matters. So now, okay, so I don't know if we can see this, so I'm going to tilt my thing so you can see it. So my weight, if you can see it, is set to 174, okay? My anti-skate is set to, I don't know if you can see it here, I'm going to read it off to you. It's set to 2.5. So there's a bit of a disjoint there, and you could argue that I could even use a little tiny bit more, right? Because my needle is still drifting in, it's not being pulled back out, you know, which is what it'll do if I have too much. So that's what we have that set to. There we go. Turn that off. So where are we now? So we set the anti-skate. We set the weight for the cartridge, and your cartridge you have to look up what the weight is. I don't remember what it is, but it'll be around there as well. It'll be around 1.6, 1.7 that you're looking to get. So now, next thing I have. Ooh, hang on, I need a piece of vinyl. One piece of vinyl. Now we need a weight. So we've got an S tone arm, but it's not tapered. Okay, that's key. If you've got a tapered tone arm, you've got a different problem. Because you won't be able to use this. Ah, crap. All right, hold on. This. There we go. So I've set the bubble level, which had the V notches in the bottom, on the tone arm. I placed the tone arm cued over the record. Dog is going to drive me nuts. We'll start it up. Okay, so I should tell you what I'm looking at here. I'm looking at the rake angle of the stylus on the vinyl, right? So you're supposed to have 2 degrees of negative rake. You know, so this is supposed to be tipped down, right, by 2 degrees. Thing is, and if you go online, you'll look up and you'll see some guys with USB microscopes. I bought one. You plug it in, you set it up, and it will, you can look at it and you can judge what the angle's supposed to be. Problem is, not all pieces of vinyl are the same thickness, and when you're doing that, the turntable is not running. The wheel's not spinning. When you actually drop the needle on a spinning piece of vinyl, there's friction, which causes the head to drop a little lower. When it does that, it changes the angle. So you really need to determine the angle of your tone arm while it's running. Now here's the thing. Most cartridge makers set it up so that when your tone arm is perfectly level, you have about the right amount of angle on your needle. And it's supposed to be 92 degrees or 2 degrees down from 90, right? That should already be built into your stylus. Having said that, every stylus is a little different. Every cartridge is a little different. So, when we drop this needle down, we play, and my tone arm, if you can see that, is level. Perfectly level. When I set this up initially, my tone arm was not perfectly level. The pivot point was a little too high. I think they set it in the factory for a slip mat, which I'm not using. You know, so if I put a felt or a leather slip mat, I think that was the intent of it. So I ended up dropping this down a little bit. So how do you do that? There's 2 Allen keys, one here and one here. You loosen those 2 Allen keys up. When it's free, it'll go all the way down. Now when you're doing this, lock your turn arm down or put a stylus guard on it or do something like that, right? So I ended up lowering it probably, not a lot, probably 3 mils. And you have to play with it a little because, you know, we don't have a screw knob adjustment like you have on some really high-end system, right? Not that this wasn't expensive enough as it was. But at any rate, so you adjust those 2 screws, and they are a... drop my Allen keys. They are, I believe, a number 3. So a 3 mil Allen key, those 2 are. So you're going to need a set of Allen keys. So now, after I lowered that, the lifter did not function properly. So the next thing I had to do was I had to, because it was jamming, because of the bass was pushing on it, and there's some sort of a little cam in there. So what I had to do next, because it was you'd lift it and it was very stiff, and I was worried I was going to actually break it, although it would go. So what I ended up doing was, there was a Phillips. So Phillips being the pointed screw, and you're going to need a large micro Phillips. So that's what I did, is I took this. There's a screw. I'm not going to do it now because we're running. There's a Phillips screw on the back side of this support behind there. You loosen it off. It's a little stiff. You have to lift it up both hands. Try not to turn it because that'll also allow you to swing this either way. Don't do that. Well, you can do it if you want, but that'll just change the dynamics of things again. So you have to lift that up a little bit so that this will run smoothly, and as it does now, right? No friction in there at all. Works great. Sounds great too. Having the right angle for the rake. So what you need is your tone arm needs to be perfectly level, and if everything's set up right, and every cartridge is different, so you can have a little variance, the needle should be hitting the stylus. The diamond on the end of the stylus should have a 2-degree rake angle like that, and that has to do with the way they cut these things. So it's a different question. You can Google it if you like, and you'll get all kinds of opinions. I would recommend against going out and buying yourself a USB microscope. They're not expensive, but they're difficult to use. And I did it. I didn't like the result. Eventually, I decided I didn't like the results. I mean, this is a trial and error thing. There's some great YouTube videos. There's one gentleman who goes on and talks about tuning this by sound, and he's dealing with, I don't know, $20,000 turntable, I guess, and he just reaches back and he adjusts the dial on it, and it tips, raises the back of the tone arm or lowers it. All good, that's fine. The next thing you need to check after you've said all that, because as you raise or lower this, it changes the angle of your cartridge to your record. So now you have to check and make sure that everything, that you're still parallel, right? Otherwise you'll produce more to the right or left image. So the key to that is I use a little a mirror. So my stylus alignment gauge is a mirror, and it's got the lines etched on the mirror. Anyway, when I drop that onto it, I can see in the reflection, and you try and balance out the reflection so that you can see that it is level and not tipped one way or the other. So surprising that on what they call an entry-level turntable, right out of the box, that it's not well set up. Well, I guess it would be well set up maybe if I used a slip mat, because it seems to have been set up to accommodate a slip mat, depending on the thickness. At any rate, even if you are using a slip mat, I would check that your tone arm is level, and go with that. That'll get you to a very close starting point. And the way it is supposed to work, or what they will tell you, is that if you don't have the negative rake built into the diamond on the end of the stylus, it'll sound deeper. You won't have the highs. You have too much rake, you'll lose some of the low end, and you'll just have a lot more highs. So it's a matter of trying to find what works for you. Difficulty with this is, I can't put on a set of headphones and I can't just turn a dial and say, oh, that sounds a little better, that sounds a little worse, right? So you kind of have to go with what you think is going to be as close as possible on this turntable, unless there's some way to set up a fine-tuning adjustment on it. Anyway, I hope that works for you, and good luck getting it set up. What else do you need? I think that's about all you need. Allen keys, micro Phillips, and you shouldn't really have to move your cartridge if it's aligned properly, unless you're changing it. So I won't get into that. That's all. Good luck.